The reason why we chose KMC is kids, obviously the target audience, multi, because we're looking at not just a quadrathlon, we're looking at triathlon and flexibility. So it's a little bit easier to apply. And challenge has become a more commonly used word now. So for some kids, competition sounds a bit scary. But challenge is something quite unique to us as a sport. So we can do challenge where you compete against yourself as much as you compete against others. So that are key reasons behind the name. And I think following on from Clive's presentation, it just shows the importance and the power that if we can do it right at this age group, the long-term effect it can have. So my presentation is very high level, but there's an opportunity through scanning on the QR codes, which will take you to the website, if you're interested in a pilot after this, to get in contact with us. So I'm going to start off by talking about what we found out when we were speaking to parents and young people about our sport. And I think that's a really key part. We've heard lots of statistics, we've heard lots of different information, and Adam's going to talk a little bit about research following. What they like about our sport is it's fun and it has lots of variety. So there is something for everyone. So it's really appealing in that sort of sense. It provides personal challenge. So I might not win a competition, but actually I can improve each time and be recognized for that. And it's inclusive and accessible, and these are really important parts that we need to listen to. What they don't like or they feel that we could do better as a sport, and these are parents who have got quite active kids who are doing lots of different sports, is long competition days, and I think that was alluded to earlier on, and distances to travel. And I mean, when you speak to some parents and they've got 2 or 3 kids, and in particular, if they're a single parent family as well, the challenge of having to give up a whole day to take one kid to a competition when the other kids don't do that sport is quite a big challenge. So they like the idea of other sports which are really local. So if you do a football competition, it's really local, it's done by the end of the morning. Same with cricket, netball leagues, etc. There can be limited activity in competition as well. I think Janice might have alluded it to in terms of you go along and just do shot put for the day, but you're out for the whole day. How exciting can that be for some young people? The frequency was really important as well, and this was probably the one what jumped out at me the most when I was listening to some of the feedback. Most sports, if you look at cricket in the summer, it's every week that they compete. If you look at football, netball, hockey, all them sports, you compete pretty much every week. And so the way that the parents described it was, it's part of our weekly routine. And you hear that in athletics when you talk about parkrun. So everybody's quiet. If you say, parkrun happens at some point at the weekend, people who do parkrun will be very no, it's 9 o'clock on a Saturday morning. And it's part of their weekly routine. Athletics is infrequent, especially for this age group. So it may not happen apart from once a month. So we have to try and fit into a family's weekly routine, which is much harder than being part of it. And the child doesn't always get selected sometimes for competitions as well. So you could be a really talented kid or really just motivated, but if it's only 2 people per event and you're the 3rd best person, you might not actually go along. So these are messages that we really need to take into consideration. So we looked at the under 10s and under 12s in particular, that primary age, to say, how do we engage with them? Because we're aware that lots of sports are doing this particularly well, and this is a really important audience for us. So when we started to develop KMC, we looked at, it's an outdoor offer because we know sports was really effective, as Clive's alluded to, indoors. And we looked at things like Quad Kids, who we've worked with in the past. One of the challenges was, though, it was 4 events. And for some competition providers, that just took too long. So what do we want in KMC is it's a triathlon or a quadrathlon, and it's flexible that you can move events around as such. So there's an element of a run, jump, throw, if it's triathlon, or speed endurance jumps, throws for a quadrathlon, and some fun relays to finish. And we're looking at it as the complementary offer outdoors to Sportshall. It will be delivered locally and ideally on your local track. So that might be either through the club themselves, it might be for a leisure provider. So GLL in London area, as an example, might want to host it. There are certain tracks, Abingdon, where you've got 2 or 3 clubs based out of that. They might want to work collaboratively together to make this happen. It has been linked. We developed the under 10s and under 12s PB awards. So whenever kids do this, pretty much they could get a PB award every time they do a KMC competition offer. So you might not win every time, but you can be celebrated for improving each time. It'll be officiated by volunteers, young volunteers ideally, and parents. So what we've learned from colleagues in Australia who do little athletics, and you'll see a bit at the end of this presentation around that, and other sports like cricket, is they utilise the parents as the officials. So this will be, it'll be insured and licensed, but it'll be licensed for parents to do it as volunteers as such on the day. So it doesn't require having X amount of level 2 officials as an example. And we've worked with Roster to build it in. So in Roster, you can do all the competition, it scores it, you can book on, etc., linked with the PB Awards. We want it to be a festival format. So these are some really key parts around it. We want it to be a come and try. So we hear a lot from clubs. The biggest challenge they have is lack of volunteers, which Clive alluded to, and massive waiting lists. So this could be a potential solution that if you can't get the kids into the club at the moment, you run one of these each week where they can come off the waiting list, have an experience, keep them engaged, because waiting lists are great, but they're just a piece of paper, and essentially they're people just waiting to be physically active. Why don't we use them and get them active in these sort of experiences? Or even open it up wider. So there could be really talented footballers, netballers, hockey players in your area, have a go at a competition format like this and suddenly go, I actually prefer this. So it could be a draw into the sport. Parents and officials could hopefully then, as Clive's alluded to, move into the club structure, and you could work in that way. That the biggest challenge is people are on the waiting list because you haven't got enough volunteers to take them off the waiting list. So if parents from this become volunteers, they help take people off the waiting list. Young athletes can help run the event as well. So maybe you're under 16, under 18 moving forwards. Could want to do some leadership skills, so let's get them involved and utilise their expertise. And it could be expanded to older age groups, this format, if for those what don't want to do the traditional league route, just want something short and exciting to do themselves. So what do you get with the KMC offer? We've got information on how to set it up in terms of laying out the track. With a timetable, we've listened to feedback from parents and kids as well. So it's hard to see there, but in the manual, you see that. The races go really quickly and we get them straight over to the next event almost immediately. We don't want kids just waiting around for half an hour, because at this age, they just want to get it done. So you essentially finish your race, you walk straight over to do standing long jump, you finish your standing long jump and get as many jumps as you can in there, and you go straight over to howler throw. You finish that, you go straight to the relays. So it is this conveyor belt of getting as much done as possible. Information on recruiting volunteers, and as I say, there's the opportunity to link it with the PB Awards as well. We've also developed cards to help with the parents, so this will teach them and take them through what they need to do on running the actual activity itself. And then finally, what we've looked at as well is making sure that it's inclusive in every way possible. So at the back of the pack, there's information on how to engage with individuals. So if a young person turns up and they have CP, there's a bit of information, bottom right corner there, on how to actually make sure that person is fully supported and engaged, and any adaptations that they may need to make to the competition. So we want to constantly evolve this, we want to constantly develop it, and we're really passionate about making sure it is absolutely inclusive. So last few slides really to summarise is the benefits to clubs that we see is it could help with volunteer recruitment, because you've got a better platform to engage with the parents when they're actively involved. You take away that fear that some parents have about being involved, because they're actively involved as officials straight away. Helping with athletes on the waiting list, as I say, this could be one where they're physically active. That come and try short form local competition could be really appealing to somebody who's not even in the sport, not even on our waiting list at the moment. In terms of retention, recognising and rewarding every athlete, it was really positive to hear some of the feedback about the PB Awards. The goal of the PB Awards predominantly is to make people feel valued and keep them in the sport long enough where if they choose to go on and be successful, then hopefully that kept them in there. It's the same approach here. Stepping stones to long-term development as well. So we want this to be a chance of, I think I had a chat with Adam at lunchtime around making sure it's quite broad at this sort of age. And in this sort of approach with a quadrathlon or triathlon, it's one of them ones where it gives them a better, broader base for long-term development. The focus is on fun and engagement. So I think Dean alluded to in terms of there might be information going on Power of 10. With this sort of stuff, for me, it's not about rankings. It's more about the kids enjoying it. It's about them going away, going, I want to do that next week. And actually, that's probably the best benchmark. If they come back every week, then you're obviously ticking a box. Linking to future development leagues as well. So we hope that this will be a precursor to moving on to things like the YDL and local leagues. And there is a potential to generate revenue. So one of the biggest challenges we have as a sport is it is voluntary, like run predominantly, and the culture is quite hard to shift. But you could do something here where it's a small fee that people are paying on a weekly basis to take part in a KMC, which generates enough to cover the cost of the venue maybe even pay some of the young leaders to help out, and obviously upskill your future volunteer workforce. So the last bit for me before I think we've got a video to play afterwards is just what next. So we've developed the manual, which we're happy to share, and as I say, it's the working title. We're developing a section on the EA website as well to give more information about that. And obviously when we've done some of the pilots, we've already had a few people run this successfully and really enjoyed the competition format. And Clive and Janice have made themselves aware, and I think Carl as well have offered to pilot this as well, is we want to keep on evolving this and make sure it's hitting the ground really effectively. It can be licensed, so it helps with that insurance point of view, and Nick can give you more information on that. And so if you're interested in piloting, let us know, that'd be fantastic. And what we want to do is develop a national strategy from that. So if we've got examples in each region that we can showcase and let people know how it's going, and take away maybe some of the concerns, then that's where we want to get to, and then move to a county level where we've got at least one in each county, and then ideally long term, we've got one in every local track. So that is a bit of a whistle-stop tour. The bit I just want to finish off with is when we were working through this, myself, Chris Jones, and another colleague have been speaking to Lidl Athletics in Australia. They got over 100,000 members in our organisation. And when we talked about the vision of doing something every week, trying to fit into that weekly schedule, they said that's exactly what they do. They have their parents helping out as the officials. They run it every week. It's really, really popular. And so it's great that we've got that collaborative working with them, but we've also seen that in other sports. So hopefully that whistle-stop tour was useful. If you've got any further questions, you can also reach out to Nick. It's the best presentation ever where you're not the contact at the end of it. But I'll leave it there. And as everybody else said, I'm around for the rest of the afternoon. But yeah, if we watch a couple of short videos now on Lidl Athletics from Australia.
G'day, my name's Miles Foreman, and I'm the CEO of Lidl Athletics Australia. Lidl Athletics was founded 60 years ago when 3 young athletes turned up to a meet, but were turned away because they were deemed to be too young. The officials at the time thought this wasn't good enough and created Lidl Athletics based upon modified rules and specifications. In those early years, they're very different specifications, with much lower weights, shorter hurdles, heights, shorter distances. But as they get older, those specifications align more with those senior athletic specs. Today, we're one of the most recognisable brands and trusted products across Australia, with 90,000 athletes participating in remote, very remote, and when I mean remote in Australia, I mean very remote centres, as well as our metropolitan centres. They're supported by 50,000 very active volunteers who tend to be the parents or the family of the children participating in Lidl Athletics. They're involved in what we call a Lidl Athletics Centre, of which there's about 350 across Australia. They're your traditional club community, where everybody supports each other, built upon our motto of family, fun and fitness, where we help everybody to be your best. Our entry level is Tiny Tots, aged 3 to 4 years, where the children learn those foundational skills, run, jump, throw, walk and roll, as well as those social skills, and develop a love for that community environment. As they progress through Lidl Athletics, they learn more about athletics, social interaction, and those skills in our 5 to 12-year-old programs. From 13 to 17, this is where they tend to specialise and have the opportunity to develop much broader and deeper athletic skills and progress into the senior ranks if they wish to do so. Of our total participation, about 6% progress to high performance athletics. However, we really celebrate our young athletes who go on in all walks of life and in all different sports to excel. We've got professional golfers, soccer players, cricket players that have terrorised those Poms many times, as well as many other sports, and we celebrate them in our Hall of Fame on an annual basis. Little Athletics is all about community, a grassroots focus on developing those lifelong skills and love of sport. And we're really lucky to have such an engaged community across Australia who are dedicated to supporting those young athletes in those ambitions. Thanks for your time today, and good luck with the rest of the conference.
The next video, I'm going to put health and safety caveat over it. That it's a great example, but probably we would change some of the things. So. So thank you so much. We would probably move the hurdles the other way around for any officials in the room. And as a hurdles coach, probably they have a different spec on that cages for discus throw. But it's just a great example of what another country has done really well and the numbers that they're involved in and the potential we've got in England to actually do something along that line. So thank you ever so much. I'll pass you over to Hannah.